Hello and welcome to Magic of the Mind. I'm your host, Allie Ashley, and today I want to discuss some basics of the law of assumption and why mastering these basics will really help propel you towards successful application of the law in your own life to manifest the things that you want. These basics are love, forgiveness, and faith, and also accountability. The idea is to practice love at all times, and this includes forgiving others who have wronged you, as well as forgiving yourself, and having faith that it's all taken care of when we express ourselves as God or as love. And this should be done as your default state, which is where a mental diet can be of use for those just getting started with practicing a continuous loving mindset. Neville Goddard, in his 1969 lecture, True Forgiveness, says, "If you truly love another, it would not matter what he or she did, you would forgive him. I don't care what my mother would do, I would forgive her or any of my brothers. I have expanded my circle to include friends and enlarged it to encompass those I do not presently know, for in truth they are all my brothers." The man who said, "Go and tell my brothers I'm ascending unto my Father and your Father, unto my God and your God," had pushed out his circle to encompass all because he knew there was only one being who was playing all the parts. So you cannot truly forgive unless you can discriminate between the being who occupies the part he's playing and the part itself. Then you can identify him with what you know he would like to be, and to the degree that you are self-persuaded that he is occupying the new state, he will become it. So here Neville is talking about love and forgiveness. These are quite simple ideas, just to show love and forgive and know all is well. But it can be quite difficult to practice, as we as humans easily fall into many habits that don't express love 24/7. So think about your own current life. Are you facing people in your 3D that are pissing you off, making you feel angry, fearful, nervous? Or maybe you're dealing with unfavorable circumstances in your life that you just don't understand why they are happening. Those who act unkindly to you are just fulfilling your beliefs about them and you. Forgive them and repent. And remember, repenting means a radical change of attitude. Why? Because love conquers all. Our minds are continuously in a competition with good versus evil or bad. And in our imagination, we choose one. So if you choose evil or bad and sow the seeds of bad into your imagination, you will reap evil or bad. Do you want to live a good life or a miserable life? If you want to live a miserable life, then by all means be negative. Send out hateful and jealous energy and believe that some people just aren't good. They won't be. You'll be right, but you'll likely live a hateful, jealous, negative existence. And I think most of us can agree, we don't want that. Yet, if you think loving thoughts in your imagination and you believe loving things about your world and the people within it, guess what you get? Yep, a lovely reality. So here's Neville Goddard on love. We are told, "He who is not loved does not know God, for God is love." This is not a conclusion that the prophet reached after years of philosophic study, but an act of God in self-revelation. If God never revealed himself to man, I doubt that man would ever know that God is love. But in spite of all the horror of the world, I know from experience that God is love. So Neville is speaking the truth here. I too have experienced this. God revealed himself to me in a way that confirms Neville's promise. I won't go too far into detail in this episode, but there was some events that lined up to this, and I want to mention them because I think having these types of testimonials does two things. Number one, it reinforces what Neville taught, his promise to those who believe him. And number two, it can help others who have experienced something similar and they need maybe some recognition or even solace from the story. So my story really began not when I found Neville Goddard and listened to countless hours of his lectures, which indeed made a profound impact on my life and changed me from my core. But my biggest moment of clarity happened after that. So I was fully submerged in the hell of my second divorce. I had just separated from my ex, and we remained roommates for far too many months in our marital household. For most of the duration of our separation, my ex-husband remained in our beautiful bedroom suite upstairs, while I had to move into the basement and sleep on a futon because it was either that or sleep with him upstairs. So it was cold and it had no windows in this basement, and it was cluttered with so much of my ex's junk that it was hardly comfortable. And my big American Bulldog bestie, who is a rescue pup, is for some reason terrified of our basement and wouldn't visit me down there when I slept. So it was cold and dark and lonely and extremely inconvenient, particularly because we had a 1-year-old who slept in the upstairs suite 3 floors up, and I was the main person tending to him at night when he woke up. So I was going back and forth on these. It was a lot. So yes, it sucked. But the point here isn't to illustrate my own personal hell that I created. That, my dear listeners, would take way too much time to explain. But to emphasize that I was very much alone on this particular evening when God revealed himself to me. Before that, I was asleep. Dead, if you will. If you've read Neville's work or listened to his lectures, likely you've come across him mentioning the different stages of one's awakening. He says, before you are risen from the dead, there will be signs in your own skull. You first awaken from the most profound sleep ever, and you awaken within your skull. So here I was lying on my futon in my basement, thinking about my life, all the misery I had caused in my own wonderful human imagination. This was my biggest wake-up call, the accountability. It was both freeing and mortifying that I had created my own hell. You see, all my fears about relationships and marriage and being betrayed in those situations, they just came true. Why? Because I feared them. You may even say I was obsessed with them not happening. So, of course, the law always works, and my fear and obsession with them not happening, is what caused them to manifest. For at least 20 years of my life, I had lived in a hell when it came to relationships, and it was because I feared this hell. So after I found Neville and understood this premise, that I was the cause of my own 3D by use of my wonderful imagination, then I realized I had a lot of cleaning up to do, particularly with my mindset. So here I was undertaking a mental diet for the first time ever, and it was harrowing. But something happened on the 3rd day of this mental diet that I didn't realize until months later was a sign that Neville speaks of. I was lying on my futon trying to combat intrusive thoughts of my past and my present and my future, and I was kind of drifting off to sleep when I felt what could only be explained as an intense zap to my head. It sounded like zzz, and the duration was long and solid. It was super weird. It made me jump from my reclining position and look around the room, even though it was pitch black. It was just like I had been what I can only imagine would be like if you were struck by lightning or electrocuted, and it scared the living hell out of me. After it happened, I was shaking, but I was also paralyzed, so I felt so afraid for my life for a moment, thinking I had actually been electrocuted or something terrible had happened. And all I could think was, what was that? What was that? Nothing in my life had ever come close to whatever that experience was. And the funny thing was, it didn't happen throughout my entire body. It was just in my head. So, of course, I had sat there for a while. I had processed it. I was scared. But then I started thinking about, the law of assumption and that I am God. And I didn't quite understand it at the time. Maybe I still don't. But it gave me a sense of relief, and so I was able to fall asleep. At the time, I had not yet heard Neville talk about the signs of the end of the play and how he describes it, though even if I had, I'm not sure I would have understood them as such. And as Neville promises, a few months later, I had a dream of the swaddled baby he talks about, the newborn, and there were 3 witnesses in my dream, and I called the baby an endearing term, and I was so happy he was in my dream, this little baby. So I'm going to take another full episode to explain this dream and experience further because it's fascinating to me, and I absolutely love hearing others' accounts of the same thing. Everybody's is different, but it's all the same. It's crazy cool. But my point is this. You guys, Neville did not lie. It happened exactly as he said it would, and I really think what helped me get this clarity and start manifesting the life I wanted, not the life I didn't want anymore, was to focus on love and loving others as often as possible. And I guess it started with me undertaking a mental diet, which is why I'm connecting these ideas in today's episode. So Neville says, the Apostle Paul tells us, though I speak with the tongues of men and angels, but have not love, I am as sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. Then he takes all the symbols of God and compares them to love. The world teaches that another is love and completely unattainable. But I tell you that though your sins are as scarlet, when you are embraced by love, they shall be as white as snow. I have done everything that a man is capable of doing, but when I was embraced by love, everything that I had done up to that point became as white as snow. No one on earth can save you. You are saved by the grace of God, and since it's not your own doing, there is no way you can boast. So Neville is saying, as you are God, you are love, and to be anything else is contradictory to your innate being. This is why you must maintain a loving mindset as often as possible. The more you practice, the easier it becomes. If you're having trouble loving a certain person in your life because they've done you harm, you must first forgive them. I have forgiven people in my life, both mentally and verbally to their faces. It all works, as long as you believe in your forgiveness. Remember, the feeling or the belief about a situation is the secret, not just saying words such as, I forgive you, but then going to bed at night mentally arguing with the person. That is not forgiveness. But here's the thing, once you truly forgive, your life will immediately start reflecting that belief, and it will improve. This simple idea has changed my entire life, and I've seen some remarkable improvements in a short period of time when I consciously forgave someone who I believed wronged me. It helps to see them as just an estate that you conjured up in your imagination, and they are just fulfilling that idea of yourself reflected back on you. Sometimes it may be extra difficult to forgive a specific person, or even yourself. Persist. Keep at it until you feel that forgiveness comes through. Then let it go. No matter what one has done to you, you must forgive and let go, and then move forward with a loving, optimistic attitude that everything is working in your favor, even if it doesn't appear to be that way in your current 3D. Mental diets are very helpful here as they help train your thoughts towards love and peace. These days, if anyone wants to engage me in a non-loving conversation about someone, I have to actively choose to think something negative. And if I happen to slip into that state, then I must repent and have a radical change of attitude to get me out of that state. And I have to revise those thoughts into something loving. This is not always easy, and yes, of course, I have off days. But I tell you, having off days on your mental diet definitely isn't worth it. There are lessons in there and various tests that you may fail, which is an experience, but eventually you'll learn this isn't the way. So you're going to start practicing this mental diet, not just as a stint or an exercise that you do for a little while, but you're going to practice it every single day. Eventually, you're going to get to that point. Again, you're going to slip up, especially if you haven't done this a lot, but it's worth it. Persist. And as you do this, start with a week or so to try it out. You may feel overwhelmed at first by it, but try and resist the urge to just fall off the wagon completely. We all have negative or unpleasant or unproductive thoughts stream into our minds, and sometimes they're from the media we ingest or past experiences, and other times they seemingly come out of nowhere. So a mental diet is really just getting into the habit of refusing to entertain any of these negative thoughts. As soon as you notice inner thoughts telling a negative story, you immediately replace them. Like a regular diet, mental diets require discipline and attention, and they're best done in short stints, which will help kickstart you into a new way of thinking overall. A mental diet consists of limiting thoughts that trigger negative emotions and substituting them with thoughts that lead to feelings of happiness, gratitude, and love. To begin a mental diet, the first thing you need to do is think about your ideal image of yourself and really think about that from the state of the wish fulfilled. Who do you want to be in life, and what ideal roles do you want to play in your life? With a mental diet, the aim is to refuse to indulge in any thoughts that run contrary to your ideal self. So for example, I want to be a wonderful mother, express myself creatively, be a supportive friend, and at every opportunity I want to help people. I aim to be kind, compassionate, and loving at all times. So this is my ideal self. However, there are many thoughts that stream into my head during the day that seem to counteract this. For example, if I'm looking at social media and something unkind crosses my mind, this goes against my ideal self of being kind and loving. Or when I'm irritated by something someone said that was rude or hateful, I may have the impulse to say something back that's rude or hateful, which also doesn't serve me in building a kind demeanor or my ideal self. Especially today when, Neville Goddard was speaking about all this stuff, there was no social media. I am fascinated often by the thought of what he would think of social media, and I can imagine that he would say it's noise, it's nonsense, but that's just my imagination working. So that's my world. But think about it. Today, right now, with everything going on in the world continuously being streamed to our phones 24/7, it's really hard to avoid negativity. And if we let it build up, just like junk food, with a physical diet, we're going to start to feel really terrible after a while. So if you've never gone on a mental diet, it can be hard to transition to a more positive mindset overnight. But it does get really easier over time as you go on with it. And it's recommended to do this for 7 days at first. But again, the goal is to implement this into your lifestyle every day. As you become more and more in tune with your thoughts, you're actually going to start to want to improve them because you're going to notice what a difference it will make to your life. So how do we monitor our mental states, and what is it that we should be focusing on? Well, really to start, for 7 days, commit to not allowing yourself to dwell on any negative or unhelpful thoughts or emotions. This doesn't mean that you're not going to have these negative thoughts or unhelpful emotions or thoughts. It's totally normal, and it's expected that you're going to have them. In fact, you're probably going to find that you have a lot more of these than you ever imagined. But what you're practicing here is not dwelling on them. Once you notice them, you catch them, and then you let them go and refocus on that ideal self, your God self, your love, and ask yourself if you would think these thoughts in your ideal world. So if your ideal self is to be wealthy, within your ideal self, you live in a wealthy state, the state of being wealthy. You wouldn't sit and fret about expenses and your lack of money at all. You wouldn't. You'd be wealthy, so you wouldn't worry about that. You'd be grateful for what you have, right? Emmett Fox, who wrote one of the most famous books on the subject called The 7-Day Mental Diet, says this about the thoughts that you should avoid. Negative thinking is when you are dwelling on failure, disappointment, or trouble, any thought of criticism or jealousy or spite or condemnation of others or yourself, or any thought of sickness or accident. In short, any kind of limitation or pessimistic thinking, any thought that concerns you or anyone else that is not positive or constructive. He says, avoid these. So think about that. That's a lot of thoughts, right? A mental diet is tough, but it's really pretty great when you undertake it. So these could include thoughts that induce jealousy, or thoughts of insecurity about yourself or your abilities, or thoughts of sorrow or pain or despair or grief, or thoughts that stress you out or cause anxiety or cause you fear, thoughts that make you feel angry or frustrated or wronged, or negative thoughts about yourself, that self-talk, I'm so stupid, or I'm such a dummy, or negative thoughts about someone else, or negative thoughts about the current circumstances you're in, or having regrets about the past or grievances about the future. Again, you're not going to be able to control what types of thoughts enter your mind, and this is okay. But if you notice a negative thought come in, you can take control and shift your thinking, which will help prevent more thoughts from streaming in. Think about how maybe you've fallen asleep at night and a negative thought pops up, and then another thought comes in, another negative one, and then another one. And before you know it, it's 3 a.m. and you're stressed out about it being 3 a.m. and you're not asleep yet. So that's another negative thought. And it's just this cycle that continues. Or maybe you fall asleep easily and this doesn't plague you, but if you've ever had a really bad day where everything seems to go wrong and you just can't get yourself into a positive mindset, you woke up and you stubbed your toe, and then when you went to get coffee, you spilled it all over your shirt, and then you couldn't find your keys, and yada, yada, yada. This is also triggered by an initial negative thought. The next time something bad happens, such as your alarm doesn't go off, or the power goes out, or your dog has an accident in the house, instead of reacting, just observe your thoughts and shift it to something positive. Then reaffirm that everything is working to your advantage, and just because something went awry, it won't prevent you from having a great day. During this 7-day period, when a negative thought of, say, a past instance occurs, catch it and just stop your thoughts and move on to something good. Anything good. I often find my thoughts drifting aimlessly into bad territory when my eyes are closed as I'm falling asleep. I find just immediately when I notice the thought has taken over, I simply open my eyes. The light from my hallway stops my thoughts and I can resume good thoughts towards my desired state. It can really be that easy to make negativity disappear. It's only when we feed it that it grows to overwhelming proportions. And if that method of just opening your eyes or just stopping it and moving on doesn't work, try making up a simple catchphrase such as nope, delete, or stop, go positive. This will help interrupt you and start training yourself to catch these negativities quicker. And it also puts your mindset back where it belongs by saying stop, go positive. I like delete. I think that's cute, and it definitely gives you this visualization that you're revising it, which is fun. So if you're having a troubling thought about yourself, ask yourself if it's actually a fact or if it's all in your head. If it's a fact and it troubles you, do not dwell on the negative state. Start looking forward to a new state, the state of the wish fulfilled. And it will come up with a solution to help get you out of that negative state. And again, this is all easily said, but it's super difficult to do. So when you slip up, forgive yourself, move forward. Emmett Fox gives great insight here as well, which I think might help you feel better as you undergo this transition with your mental diet. So he says, as you embark on any diet, you know that your mind plays tricks on you. You crave the old food you used to partake of. This diet is no different. You will find your mind wanting to go to the negative, wanting to say something or gossip about someone or something. Sometimes it will be exhausting to fight urges you have to just say one thing, just like having one taste of that delicious cake when you're on a food diet. So if you make a false start or fall off the wagon, you must stop and start again the next day. And recognize that those bad days are okay and probably will happen, especially if you've never done this before. So if you find yourself going totally off your mental diet due to a stressful circumstance or people in your life who are bringing you down, forgive yourself, learn from it, and start back up again. So here are some key tips to help you as you start your mental diet. So recognize that thoughts come from all sorts of different places, but one that's constantly streaming information into our thoughts is the internet. So during these 7 days, be very mindful of the media you're taking in. Honestly, I believe you should get off social media for a week, all of it. If you want to argue that you have no reason to get off social media because you only look at happy memes and puppy photos, fine. Just ensure that you're being honest with yourself. After all, your mindset creates your reality, so it's ultimately up to you what you believe. But consider if it's such a positive place for you to actually be. Or are you also getting sucked into drama about friends or politicians or society's bad habits, even if you don't engage? Does it bother you? Or are negative thoughts streaming through your mind as you compare yourself to others? For example, I have a Twitter account, which I follow a great deal of people, almost none of whom I personally know. And the topics they discuss are in my realm of interest: social policy, mental health, physical health, metaphysics, etc. But my timeline is not filled with flowery, happy thoughts. More than anything, there's negativity abound. So in your own social media timelines, look for it, notice it, and try and avoid it because it serves you no good. What benefit to your mindset will doom scrolling or even mindlessly scrolling on your phone for hours over the period of days give you? Does it make you feel good? Maybe sometimes there's a funny meme within the stream of noise. Okay, fine. But do you find yourself fretting over what info you've digested in your timeline? Or why a guy you kind of knew 10 years ago supports something you find abhorrent? Give it up for a week, see how you feel. There's a lot of noise on there that will keep you lost. Also, be mindful of how you speak with others and of yourself. Don't engage in negative self-talk or complaining to others. Many people are prone to more negative thinking. And if these people test your mental diet, practice ignoring their negativity and only respond to the positive things they say. Or if you find yourself complaining during the day, say I start complaining to someone about something or another that happened to me, that bothered me. I immediately try and correct it and express gratitude in place of my complaint. It's super helpful, though some people who want to join in on your complaining may find it a little annoying. It's all good, just persist. And definitely the last tip is to try your best. This is no easy task, and 7 days is a long time to keep yourself mentally positive if you've never done it before. But you may be really surprised at how much you learn about yourself and how wonderful your life will become when you start focusing on the positive over the negative. It's difficult to account for just how many negative thoughts come into our minds each day, but once you start a mental diet and keep at it for several days, you'll have a really good idea of just how much energy you're putting towards thoughts that don't align with the ideal version of you. I'm rather sensitive to certain things, and I know these weaknesses well. So I personally stay away from media or news that put my mind into these undesirable states. If you're a fan of movies or TV shows that bring up negative emotions, give those up for a week too. I used to really be into psychological thrillers and true crime shows, but I don't think that those help my mental states at all. In fact, judging by how my life was going at the time of me consuming such media, I would say it's a guarantee that they didn't help my state. So try it out. It's just 7 days, but it may change your entire life. For the better. It certainly helped me to kickstart to a much more loving attitude towards the world and find parts of myself that were long lost. It's worth it, and I hope that if you haven't yet found the magic within a mental diet, you try it out soon. So if you've ever taken on a mental diet, or if you're still on a mental diet, or if you've even had the experiences that Neville has mentioned by starting to awaken within, please leave a comment and let me know. I delight in other stories of how a radical change in attitude towards love can make some radical changes in one's life. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you all for joining me, and remember, every thought counts, so use them wisely.